Let me get the view I want up and close out some other screens so we can see you guys. Team M, prosecution, can you go ahead and introduce yourselves and your witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury, my name is Chalmers Powell, and I represent the people of the state of Colorado. Your Honor, may my co-counsel now introduce themselves?
Please.
Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury, my name is Madeline Proctor, and I represent the people of the state of Colorado.
Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury, my name is Feliciana Sayers, and I represent the people of the state of Colorado.
Your Honor, may our witnesses now introduce themselves?
Please, thank you.
Good morning, Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury. My name is Trenton Schultz, and I am Detective Jordan Markowitz.
Good morning, Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury. My name is Benjamin Phillips, and I am Kyle Kuzak.
Good morning, Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury. My name is Juliet Bruner, and I am Alex Cifuentes.
All right, Team X, defense, can you go ahead, please introduce yourselves?
Yes, Your Honor. My name is Catherine Hay. We will be representing Avery Becker. I will be opening and directing Blake Van Owen and Avery Becker, and I will be crossing Detective Markowitz. Permission for my co-counsel to introduce himself.
Please. Mr. Benedict, you're muted. Go ahead and unmute yourself.
My apologies. Good morning, Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury. My name is Percy Benedict. I represent Avery Becker, and today I will be crossing Kyle Kuzak, directing Taylor Perkins, crossing Alex Cifuentes, and closing.
Thank you.
Permission for our witnesses to introduce themselves?
I think we have one more defense attorney.
We do not. It's just the two of us.
Oof. Go ahead.
My name is Iris McClure, and I am Blake Van Owen.
My name is Peyton Ankrum, and I am Avery Becker.
My name is Helen Reichert, and I am Taylor Perkins.
All right, thank you all. I'm going to have to swear in the team members at this time, so if you all can raise your right hand, please. Team members, do you promise that the that the presentation you are about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to the facts and the rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
All right, thank you. Now, witnesses, if you can go ahead and raise your right hands. Do you promise that the testimony that you're about to give will faithfully and truthfully conform to your witness statements, that you will not add material facts or opinions which are not contained in the case problem, and that you will follow the rules and procedures of the mock trial competition?
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you. Let's see here. Hold on a sec, guys. A little technical difficulty here. Here we go. And then scoring panelists, if you can all raise your right hand. Scoring panelists, please raise your right hands. Do you promise to adjudicate the mock trial competition as fairly and objectively as possible in accordance with the facts, procedures, and rules of the mock trial competition?
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
I do.
Do we have any matters we need to deal with prior to beginning trial? Prosecution?
Yes, Your Honor. Your Honor, the people request that the stipulated facts be constructively read into the record.
That shall so be.
Your Honor, we also request while entering exhibits, we may refer to them, ask the witness and opposing counsel to refer to them in their case material, and then if they are admitted, we may request permission to screen share to the jury.
That's fine. What we've been doing before is screen sharing it right from the beginning, and then if it's admitted, we'll just constructively publish them to the jury. Either way you want to do it is absolutely fine, counsel.
Yes, Your Honor. And finally, Your Honor, the people request that any time remaining in my closing argument may be reserved for rebuttal.
It will be reserved.
With that, Your Honor, the people are ready to proceed.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Hay?
We would like to ask that the witnesses and attorneys tell us their preferred pronouns, just so everyone's clear on that.
And that's fine if you want to put that in your notes as Team X has, that would help as well. It helps me with referring to people. Okay. Anything else, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Powell, is the prosecution ready to proceed to the opening statement?
Yes, Your Honor, the people are ready to proceed.
Whenever you're ready.
Your Honor, before I begin, I'd like to just advise you that we have trial rosters in the chat if you would like to access those.
Thank you very much.
Towers, texts, and tantrums. Mackenzie Brackman was an attorney, so he's running around all day was just part of the gig. He also volunteered his time at the local high school as a mock trial coach. For him, moments of rest were few and far between. But on March 6th, he finally got one of those moments. No more worrying about the defendant in his upcoming case or that Avery Becker kid who vandalized his car. No, he sat down and listened to the birds chirp on South Flower Street. Ding, motion at your front door. Ding, motion at the side gate, and as the back door slides open, one more alert. It all happened so quickly, and Coach Brackman reached for a defensive weapon. One moment he was relaxing, and the next he was fighting for his life. But before he knew it, there was a knife in his back, and he was bleeding out on the floor. The masked and angry intruder fleeing the scene. Turns out that intruder was Avery Becker. These were the final moments of Coach Mackenzie Brackman. Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury, my name is Madeline Proctor, and together with Feliciana Sayers and Chalmers Powell, we represent the people of the state of Colorado. Now, we have the burden in today's case to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant, Miss Becker, committed the crimes of second-degree burglary, which is criminal mischief, and by extension, first-degree murder. We will meet that burden. For now, focus on three things: towers, texts, and tantrums. Towers. Detective Markowitz used highly accurate cell tower data to find out where Avery Becker really was on March 6th. Those records proved that Miss Becker was at the home of the defendant during the time of the break-in and the murder. Her phone pinged not once, not twice, but 3 times in the same cell tower arc as the victim's home. This is clear evidence of her location. Texts. Alex Cifuentes received text messages from the defendant's own phone threatening to vandalize Coach Brackman's house. These messages were sent the day before the murder, and they paint a portrait of the defendant's motive to go to Coach Brackman's house, break in, and vandalize it. The messages prove her intent to go to his house and vandalize it. And the resulting crime scene proves that she followed through with it. Tantrums. Avery Becker went to Coach Brackman's house on March 6th to vandalize it. A burglary gone wrong. Now, you see, Miss Becker had won some awards at the regional mock trial tournament, but Coach Brackman told her she didn't deserve them. So what happened? She got mad. And when he told her, and when he saw what she had done and kicked her off the team, she got even madder. This gave her all the motive in the world to go to Coach Brackman's house on March 6th, break in, and vandalize it. The defense has no obligation to present evidence in today's trial, but we expect that they will. Their purported expert has only ever testified for the defense. Taylor Perkins will do anything to help his best friend. And Avery Becker has every possible reason not to tell the truth. Members of the jury, the case in front of you today is a tragedy. Coach Brackman dedicated his life to helping shape the future leaders of America. He was a shining star in the community, but that light extinguished when he bled out on the floor on March 6th. Towers, texts, and tantrums. At the end of today's trial, Mr. Powell will stand before you and walk with you through the evidence. He will ask for a verdict of guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Does the defense wish to make an opening at this time?
Yes, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready, counsel.
All right, thank you. Hello, my name is Catherine Hay, and today we will be representing the defendant, Avery Becker. The defendant stands falsely accused of murdering Mackenzie Brackman, as well as committing second-degree burglary. Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this is a case about confirmation bias, as well as poor workmanship by numerous state investigators. This bias was demonstrated in their refusal to consider alternative theories, including other, more likely theories and suspects. The evidence will show that Avery Becker has a strong alibi for the time and day of murder when there were other suspects who were unaccounted for at this time. Unfortunately, the evidence will also show the clear bias in law enforcement's eyes through how they were only focused on proving Avery to be the killer and how they failed to collect exculpatory evidence that would have pointed them to the true killer. Detective Jordan Markowitz and Kyle Kuzak did not thoroughly examine the crime scene, deliberately disregarded other theories, and lost evidence. In the end, the evidence will show to be inconclusive and will not fulfill the burden of proof. Today, we will call 3 witnesses to the stand. First, we will call Blake Van Owen, who will tell us more about the shortcomings of the prosecution, as well as go over the bias that Detective Markowitz and Mr. Kuzak clearly had. She will also go over Blair Rollins, a far more likely suspect to have killed Brackman. Second, Avery Becker, the accused, who will explain that, as I stated before, that despite what the prosecution believes, she never went to his house and was with her friend on the day of the murder. And finally, Taylor Perkins will confirm that she and Avery were together on the entire day on which Brackman was killed, and that Avery could not have done it. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, Avery Becker has been falsely accused of these crimes and was with her friend all day. At the end of the trial, we will ask for a verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Is the prosecution ready to proceed with their first witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The people call Jordan Markowitz to the stand. Good morning, Detective. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Good morning. My name is Jordan Markowitz. That's Markowitz.
Let's talk about your qualifications. What do you do for a living?
I'm a homicide detective with the Denver Police Department.
How long have you been on the force?
I started my career with the DPD about 13 years ago, and for the past 7, I've been a detective.
Over those 13 years, have you acquired any skills?
Yes, sir. After 13 years of being on the force, I have grown and developed many skills, especially skills concerning cell phones and forensic data recovery.
What did you do to get those skills?
I attended an extensive 3-day course from the American Academy of Law Enforcement, in which I passed a certification test.
What did you have to do to pass that certification test?
I completed the three-day course where I learned the ins and outs of cell phone technology and forensic data recovery.
How many times have you used that certification and your skills?
I've downloaded the contents of hundreds of phones and used cell tower analysis in over 50 cases. This is just part of my job.
Your Honor, the people request the court to recognize Detective Markowitz as an expert in the field of cell phone technology, cell tower analysis, forensic data recovery, and crime scene investigation. Pursuant to Rule 702, his skill, knowledge, education, experience, and training have all been shown, and his testimony will assist the jury in understanding this evidence.
Is there any objection from the defense?
No, Your Honor.
He shall be so qualified.
Detective Markowitz, what did you do in preparation for today's case?
So in preparation for any case, I work to remove any personal bias that I may have.
Detective, let's start at the beginning of March 6th. What happened that day?
That day, I received a call to 444 South Flower Street near Broomfield, Colorado. I arrived at approximately 1400 hours.
Upon arriving at the scene, what did you discover?
I found a Caucasian male, approximately 50 years old. He had been stabbed just beneath his left shoulder blade and had died of exsanguination.
When did you start your investigation?
My investigation started when I first arrived at the scene.
How did you start that investigation?
So first, I examined the victim. Then I noticed there was a trail of blood droplets leading back to the kitchen. I followed them.
What did you find in the kitchen?
In the kitchen, I found a knocked over chair, an empty knife block, a knife drawer open, and a broken plate, in addition to scuff marks, all in the kitchen.
What did you do after investigating the kitchen?
After investigating the kitchen and clearing the rest of the house, I began to look around the outside of the house.
What did you find there?
There, I found 3 different ring security systems, one at the front door, one at the side gate, and one at the back door.
What did the first camera show you?
In the first camera, you can see an intruder wearing a Halloween mask covering their face, a big hoodie, and gloves. They approach the front door and try to enter, but are unsuccessful.
What can be seen in the second camera?
In the second camera pointing at the side gate, the intruder walks through the side gate and closes it behind them.
And finally, what can be seen in the third camera?
In the third camera, you can see the intruder open the back door and enter the residence.
Detective Markowitz, in light of your experience and the evidence you found at the scene of the crime, what do you think happened that led to Mackenzie Brackman's death?
Based on the number of homicides I've investigated, it seemed fairly simple. The victim had caught the intruder breaking into their home and had likely confronted the intruder with a large knife from the kitchen. Then a struggle ensued, but the intruder must have gotten control of the knife and stabbed the victim. It seemed most likely that the victim then ran to the front door, either being chased by the intruder or chasing after them, before he fell and bled out at his front door.
Why do you believe that?
Looking at the totality of the circumstances, a broken plate, a knocked over chair, an open knife drawer, blood droplets, ring videos, scuff marks, all these help me to form my conclusion in this case.
We'll talk about your conclusion later, but Detective, let's move on to Avery Becker. What initially led you to suspect the defendant?
First, I downloaded the contents of Mr. Brackman's phone. I discovered that he was involved with mock trial at Colorado High School. Judging by the number of emails and texts he received, he was extremely involved. And through this involvement, I was actually able to get in touch with one of the members of the team, Alex Cifuentes.
What did you learn from Ms. Cifuentes?
After a call and an interview with Alex Cifuentes, I found out that the defendant had recently vandalized Mr. Brackman's car and was kicked off the team for it.
What else did you do with Ms. Cifuentes' information?
I also learned from Alex Cifuentes that he received text messages from the defendant.
Did you formally interview Ms. Cifuentes?
Yes, sir, I did.
And when you heard about those text messages, what did you do?
First, I asked Alex Cifuentes for their phone. They had left it at home, which would be fairly not unusual. I mean, this was an interview about a murder. People get stressed out about things like this. But I just asked for him to send me screenshots when he got home, which he did.
Detective Markowitz and Miss Hay, do you have Exhibit 14 in front of you?
Yes, sir, I do.
I do.
Detective Markowitz, what is Exhibit 14?
This is a copy of the screenshots that I received from Alex Cifuentes.
Are these a fair and accurate copy of Exhibit 14?
Yes, sir, they are.
Your Honor, the people request that Exhibit 14 be admitted into evidence for its accuracy and authenticity have been shown.
Any objection, Ms. Hayes?
No, Your Honor.
Exhibit 14 shall be admitted.
Your Honor, permission for Ms. Sayers to publish to the jury?
Certainly.
What on these text messages caused you to arrest the defendant, detective?
There are two text messages in particular that helped me in my investigation. The first one is when the defendant said, well, if he's upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset when he sees what I do to his house. The second one was, I'm going to wait till he's at work, then break in and trash it. Of course, in reference to Mr. Brackman's home.
Wow. Other than that, what else led you to arrest Miss Becker?
Upon further examinations, the call detail records provided me information about the location of the defendant's phone on the day of March 6th.
What are call detail records?
Call detail records, or CDRs, are accurate records of when phone calls or text messages were sent and received to a specific phone.
Detective Markowitz and Miss Hay, please direct your attention to Exhibit 16.
Yes, sir.
Do you have Exhibit 16 in front of you?
Yes, sir, I do.
What is Exhibit 16?
This is a copy of a map that I overlaid with cell towers and their arcs.
Is this a fair and accurate copy of the map you made?
Yes, sir, it is.
Your Honor, the people request that Exhibit 16 be admitted into evidence for its accuracy and authenticity have been shown.
Ms. Hayes?
No objections, Your Honor.
Exhibit 16 shall be admitted.
Permission for Ms. Sayers to publish to the jury, Your Honor.
Permission granted.
How did this aid your investigation, Detective?
Well, looking at this exhibit, you can see that the first ping was made to this tower by Centura Health at 12:47, designated by the time next to the cell tower. The second ping was at 12:55 at the tower by West Flatirons Crossing Drive, a tower that covers the road between the defendant's home and Mr. Brackman's home. Then the third tower, located at the bottom of the map, covering Mr. Brackman's home, pings 3 different times at 13:05, 13:06, and 13:17.
What does this show?
This shows that it would be extremely likely that the phone of the defendant was near the house of Mr. Brackman because of the repeated connection to the same cell tower.
How accurate are call detail records, Detective?
While they are not 100% accurate, cell phones use an extensive algorithm to connect to the tower that provides the best service. This means that in instances of high cell tower traffic, they might not connect the closest one. However, in this case, the phone connected to the same tower near Mr. Brackman's home on 3 separate occasions, which clearly indicates that the phone was in that vicinity.
Thank you, Ms. Sayers. Detective Markowitz, are you aware that the defendant claims she was at the mall during the time of the murder?
Yes, sir, I am.
What do you have to say about that?
Judging by the location of the defendant's phone, it would be very unlikely that her phone would ping 3 times to the tower covering the home of Mr. Brackman, a tower that does not cover the mall or even the Fry Shack.
Let's talk about that conclusion you previously mentioned. How did you form your opinion?
I formed my opinion by following the evidence in this case. I didn't forge any evidence. I simply followed the evidence and let it take me where it led.
What is your opinion?
In my expert opinion, first, the intruder, the defendant, tried to enter through the front door but was unsuccessful. So they moved around to the back door where they were able to unlawfully enter the home of Mr. Brackman. Then events ensued that ended with Mr. Brackman being stabbed in the kitchen before moving falling at his front door, and bleeding out.
Detective, can you please identify the defendant?
Yes, she was the one in introductions you saw wearing the gray blazer and her hair pulled back.
Thank you, Detective. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Your Honor, you're on mute.
It's trying to be quiet for you guys. Ms. Hayes, is there any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Detective Markowitz, you said in your testimony that you have worked against Brackman before, correct?
In my statement, I said that.
Can you confirm that you did not download the contents of Alex's phone and simply accepted screenshots instead?
With Alex's phone, there was a credible report of a threat,
Yes or no?
a credible interview, and a credible screenshot. Of course, I did not download the contents of his phone.
Are you aware that Alex Cifuentes is also a suspect in this case?
Of course, I'm aware of that.
Wouldn't it be reasonable to assume that if Alex was suspected to be part of the murder of Mackenzie Brackman, that they would lie?
He was made a suspect at the start of the investigation. I interviewed him and deemed that he was not the killer in this case.
All right. Is it true that you did not explore any of the other suspects in this case besides Avery Becker?
I simply followed the evidence in this case and took it where it led me.
Yes or no, please? Did you explore?
I did investigate. There were other suspects in this case, if that's what you're asking.
Did you investigate them?
The investigation is the whole process. Following leads on individual suspects is a different thing.
Did you follow the leads on any of the other suspects?
Like I already said, I follow the evidence in this case and take it where it leads me. There was simply no evidence that pointed to anyone else but the defendant.
Are you aware that Blair Rollins was missing on the day of the murder?
I am aware.
Are you aware that they have no alibi and are currently still missing?
I am aware of that. However, like I said, there was no evidence that pointed towards Blair Rollins.
Are you aware of Blair Rollins, the situation with his father?
I am aware of that.
So his father was sent to jail because of Brackman. And the last thing he said was that he would get revenge. I would think that that seems plenty.
Our counsel is testifying.
Response, Ms. Hayes?
No, Your Honor.
Go ahead and rephrase your question, okay?
Jonathan Rollins was sent to jail because of Mackenzie Brackman. Wouldn't it seem likely that a likely motive that he wanted to get revenge for his father?
This is possible. However, as I have already stated, no evidence points towards Blair Rollins.
You collected the cell tower information, correct?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
Did you collect any of the information for Taylor's phone?
Of course I didn't. There was no need to.
Taylor was Avery Becker's alibi. That seems, if you had collected that information, could you not have confirmed Avery Becker's alibi?
Even if I had downloaded the contents of Taylor Perkins' phone, it would show absolutely nothing.
You wouldn't need to download the information, you would just have to get the cell tower information.
Even if I got the cell tower information, it would prove absolutely nothing. Just because Taylor Perkins' phone says that they were at the mall doesn't show anything about where Avery Becker was on that day.
All right. And is it correct that even though Avery Becker's the cell tower information says their phone was nearby the house, we cannot confirm that Avery Becker was with their phone?
It seems fairly obvious that the defendant would have their phone.
The defendant said that in her witness statement that she had lost
I'm
her.
aware of the claims that she had lost her phone. However, I cannot take that for truth.
All right. Detective Markowitz, do you know what confirmation bias is?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
I'll just define it for the jury as well.
Yeah.
Confirmation bias is the
Objection,
tendency.
Your Honor. Counsel is testifying.
Any response, Ms. Hayes?
I was simply defining the definition of confirmation bias so that the jury would know what it was as well.
Mr. Powell?
Your Honor, that's still testifying.
Sustained.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Any redirect, Mr. Powell?
Yes, Your Honor.
Detective Markowitz, let's talk about the evidence you found. Was there any evidence to suspect that Blair Rollins committed this crime?
No, there was no evidence that pointed towards Blair Rollins in this case.
Did Blair Rollins make a threat?
Blair Rollins never made a threat. And as far as I'm aware, I have no understanding if he was even at the court proceeding when his father made that statement.
Detective, why would Taylor Perkins' phone downloading the contents of her phone prove nothing?
Even if I did download the contents or look at the call detail records, all that would show was where Taylor Perkins' phone was. Taylor Perkins may say they were with Avery Becker, but that does not mean they were.
Thank you, Detective. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Does the prosecution wish to call any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Kyle Kuzak to the stand.
Whenever you're ready, counsel.
Good morning, Mr. Kuzak.
Good morning.
My name is Madeline Proctor. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Of course, Miss Proctor. My name is Kyle Kuzak. Last name is spelled K-U-Z-A-K.
So, Mr. Kuzak, what do you do for a living?
I am a Colorado Bureau of Investigation certified crime scene reconstruction investigator. For simplicity's sake, we're typically known as CSRs.
And what does being a CSR typically entail?
CSRs like me are civilian employees of police departments. We provide specialized work helping them reconstruct crime scenes.
What police department do you work for?
Currently, I'm with the DPD, the Denver Police Department. However,
And how long have you been with the DPD?
I've been with them for 3 years now.
Did you work for anyone else before that?
Yes, I've actually worked for various different police departments. I have over 19 years of experience in the field.
What sort of cases do you handle?
Actually, there's no one singular type of case I handle. I handle a wide variety of complex crime scenes. I work on property crimes like home invasions and burglaries. I also work on homicides, domestic violence cases, and armed robberies.
Do all of the incidents you reconstruct, are they all the result of a crime?
Actually not. When I do my investigation, I don't go in looking for a crime. I just try to put the evidence together to find out exactly what happens. And sometimes the evidence says that no actual crime was committed.
Your Honor, at this time, the people request the court to recognize Mr. Kuzak as an expert in the field of crime scene reconstruction. As pursuant to Rule 702, his skill, knowledge, experience, education, and training have all been shown, and his testimony will assist the jury in helping to understand the facts of today's case.
Mr. Benedict, any objection?
No objection, Your Honor.
He shall be so qualified.
Is there a particular method that experts in your field follow?
Yes, Ms. Proctor, there is. It's called Ross and Gardner's 5-step method.
Tell us more about Ross and Gardner's method.
As I was saying, it's a 5-step method. It involves recognition, evidence collection, evidence evaluation, hypothesis formation, and then, of course, reconstruction.
Did you use Ross and Gardner's method in this case?
Yes, it's the most commonly used method. I use it in all of my cases.
Let's talk about that. How did you implement step 1 in regard to today's case?
For step 1, I gathered information about the different witnesses and evidence they provided me with and mapped it all out in different spreadsheets and flowcharts. I also integrated evidence ID numbers into these spreadsheets for sake of accessibility.
You said there's evidence involved in step 1. Are there any other steps that have to do with evidence?
The entire process revolves around evidence to a certain degree, but I'd say that steps 2 and 3 involve collecting evidence and evaluating evidence. They involve evidence most directly.
And how did you go about step 2?
For step 2, I was able to personally view the crime scene on the day of the murder after the police team had processed it. I was also provided with all of the evidence that the police used in their investigation. So, for example, the ring videos that Detective Markowitz sent me.
What about step 3?
For step 3, I evaluated all of this evidence.
So what evidence did you collect and evaluate?
I think the entirety of the crime scene could be considered evidence. So everything I found there, the open knife drawer, the knife block, there was a knocked over chair, there were scuff marks on the floor, there was a broken plate. And of course, you could also consider the victim's body a piece of evidence.
Let's start with the victim's body and also the knife. How did that evidence help you to reach your reconstruction?
Together, these 2 pieces of evidence showed me 2 important details about the case, namely that Mr. Brackman was stabbed and that he died of exsanguination after he removed a knife from his back.
And do you know where the knife came from?
Yes, the knife, the murder weapon, was most likely taken from the knife block on the top of his counter.
Is there anywhere else it could have come from?
It could have potentially come from the knife drawer. However, I do believe it came from the knife block, given the size of the slot in the knife block and the prominence that the handle would have had in the knife block.
All right, now let's talk about the scuff marks, the chair, and the broken plate. How did that evidence help you reconstruct the scene?
Taken independently, these pieces of evidence don't say much. However, in combination, they show me that an altercation had taken place.
Tell us about that altercation.
So it's clear that Mr. Brackman struggled with the intruder, in the process knocking over a chair, breaking a plate, and leaving scuff marks on the floor by the door.
And let's skip ahead to step 5, your final step. Were you able to reconstruct the scene?
Of course I was.
Tell us about your reconstruction.
I believe that an intruder attempted to enter the home, first through the front door and finding it to be locked, proceeded around the house and went in through the back door. This is shown by the ring videos. Mr. Brackman was alerted to an intruder's presence by the ring security system, and if not by the ring security system, then most definitely by the opening door. He grabbed a Russian knife to defend himself. However, the intruder was already in the house. They briefly struggled and he was stabbed.
I see. You mentioned the ring videos. What can you tell us about the ring videos?
The ring videos showed an intruder's progression around the house. As I was saying, they're provided to me by Detective Markowitz. They also give me a general height and build of the intruder.
So given all of this evidence and also your reconstruction, did you form a conclusion for today's case?
Yes, Ms. Proctor, I did.
What was that conclusion?
Concisely put, I'd say that Mr. Brackman's death was the result of a burglary gone wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzak. No further questions at this time, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Benedict, do you have any cross-examination you wish to conduct?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready, counsel.
Mr. Kuzak, you said it yourself that you are unable to recreate all events and you wanted more evidence in this case. Such was stated in line 130 of your statement. Am I correct?
Good morning, Mr. Benedict. Yes, you are correct. I wish for more evidence in every case that I process.
Was there enough physical evidence to pin Avery Becker as the killer?
Excuse me, could you repeat your question, please?
My apologies. I did not know I was talking over you. Was there enough physical evidence to pin Avery Becker as the killer?
I believe that question would be better suited for Detective Markowitz. I'm just the CSR.
Then, do you have any knowledge of how the photos became corrupted?
No, the photos were corrupted while those were police files.
Did you see the content of the photos?
Yes, I did, and I used them in my reconstruction.
And did you draw your bear hug stab wound conclusion just from the placement of the wound?
Also from the blood cast off and logical conclusions about logical deductions from the murder weapon.
And you did watch the ring footage, correct?
Many times, yes. It was very helpful in my reconstruction.
Yes. Could you describe the statures of both parties involved as stated in your testimony?
Say about medium build, average weight about 5'6" or 7".
Would this be the intruder or the victim?
This would be an intruder.
Did you determine your bear hug to be the most likely method of killing, despite the difference in build between victim and intruder?
Of course.
And can you be certain that the victim was alerted to the intruder's presence by the Ring doorbell?
That is the function that Ring doorbells serve, Mr. Benedict.
And is it possible that the scuff marks could have been made prior to the intrusion?
Anything's possible. It's very unlikely.
Mr. Kuzak, could you please define confirmation bias for the court?
Confirmation bias when you're entering an investigation, if you have a preconceived, well, if you're with anything in life, if you have a preconceived notion of the outcome, working to find evidence that supports that outcome.
So do you believe that confirmation bias could have played a role in this case?
I don't believe I'm qualified to answer that. It's not in my statement. Would you still like me to answer?
No. Mr. Kuzak and counsel, do you have a copy of what has been previously marked as Exhibit 17? Permission for my counsel to share her screen. Mr. Kuzak, could you please explain what this is?
Yes, this is one of the spreadsheets I used in step 1. Spreadsheets like this are very helpful in helping me visually lay out the different witnesses and the piece of evidence they provide me with.
And how exactly do you know this?
Because this is the process I use. I've used it in all of my investigations.
And since you wrote this, I am assuming, is it a fair and accurate representation?
Yes, it is.
Then, Your Honor, we move to enter Exhibit 17 into evidence.
Any objection, Ms. Proctor?
No objection to 17, Your Honor.
Exhibit 17 shall be admitted.
Mr. Kuzak, were there other potential suspects aside from Avery Becker?
Yes, it's my understanding that the police interviewed numerous suspects.
Am I correct in seeing that you have listed Alex Cifuentes and Blair Rowlands as suspects?
Yes, that would be correct.
And is it true that the police did not attempt to pursue Rowlands any further?
Again, I'm the CSR. I'm not Detective Markowitz. I cannot speak as to how far they pursued that lead.
Are you aware that Blair Rowlands has gone missing following the murder?
Excuse me, Mr. Benedict, I don't know much about either suspect. I'm a CSR. I put together what happened on the day of the murder.
Then I will ask another question. Am I correct in saying you know Professor Blake Van Owen?
Yes, I know of him. I've talked to him.
Do you believe that your opinion on the professor could have impacted your assessment of her report?
Highly doubtful. Again, I just knew him in passing from CSR conferences.
And are you aware that other investigators described this case as rushed and sloppily done?
Yes, the case as a whole, but I haven't heard. Yes.
And is it true that you did label this case a burglary gone wrong?
Yes, that was my conclusion. I stand by it.
And is it true that there were expensive items still left in the home, such as a laptop?
A burglary doesn't necessarily mean that something was stolen. It means intent to commit criminal mischief.
Just a few more questions, Mr. Kuzak. Are you passionate about the work that you do as a CSR?
Of course I am.
And are you proud of yourself whenever you assist in solving a case?
Yes, it's very satisfying work.
Would you harm somebody who got in the way of your work?
Excuse me? What?
Entirely hypothetical.
Would I harm somebody who got...
Objection, Your Honor. Relevance. Asking him to speculate on whether or not he would harm someone who got in the way of his work is completely irrelevant to today's case. Mr. Kuzak has not harmed anyone who has gotten in the way of his work. And
Mr. Benedict, is there any response?
No response, Your Honor.
Overruled. You can answer.
Then I have no further questions.
Can you have your co-counsel take down the screen, please?
Yes.
Thank you. Any redirect, Ms. Proctor?
yes, Your Honor. Mr. Kuzak, Mr. Benedict mentioned some photos had been corrupted. What were those photos of?
These were photos of the blood cast off from the knife on the wall and on the ceiling.
And did you use the photos in your reconstruction?
Yes, indeed I did.
But did you see them before they'd been corrupted?
Yes, of course, they were corrupted later. I was still able to use them in my investigation.
So did the photos being corrupted have any impact on your conclusion?
No, not at all.
And as a CSR, is it your job to determine the suspects?
No, it is not.
What is your job?
My job is, again, to figure out the events that happened at the crime scene.
Whose job is it to determine the suspects in today's case?
Broadly speaking, to police, but specifically Detective Markowitz. I believe he led the investigation.
Mr. Benedict also mentioned that you knew Blake Van Owen.
Yes, correct.
Would you let any personal interaction with Miss Van Owen impact your conclusions in today's case?
No, of course not. I don't know Miss Van Owen very well.
And in
Yes.
light of Mr. Benedict's cross-examination, do you still have a conclusion for us?
Yes, I do, Miss Proctor.
What is that?
I still believe that Mr. Brackman's death was the result of a burglary gone wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Kuzak. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Does the prosecution wish to call any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The prosecution calls Alex Cifuentes to the stand.
All right, Ms. Cifuentes. Ms. Sayers, whenever you're ready.
Good morning, Ms. Cifuentes. My name is Feliciana Sayers. Please introduce yourself to the jury.
Hi, I am Alex Cifuentes. That's Sifuentes.
Ms. Cifuentes, let's start with Avery Becker. How do you know her?
Me and Avery, we were on the mock trial team together, actually the A team, and she actually got me to join when I was a freshman.
What is mock trial?
A mock trial is so much fun. It's just like a bunch of nerds hanging out. You basically have a team, and some people are all lawyers, others are witnesses, and you actually get to go to a real courthouse with a real judge and try the case. Unless you're in a global pandemic, then you go to Zoom.
How did Miss Becker fit into your mock trial team?
Avery was a lawyer, but she constantly showed up unprepared and late to practice.
How did that affect your team?
It stressed us out a lot and caused a lot of anxiety. It's just when everyone else is working really hard on your team and one person isn't there, especially going into tournament like regionals, which is really important for state, it's very stressful.
Let's talk about Mackenzie Brackman. Who was he to you?
Coach Brackman was an amazing coach. We both believe that working hard was the way to succeed. I actually think he saw a bit of himself in me at times. It's just really sad knowing that he's gone. I just really miss him.
Ms. Cifuentes, I understand this is hard for you, but we are going to continue. What was Coach Brackman and Miss Becker's relationship like?
It wasn't the best, to say the least. They just were so different. Avery kind of made things up on the fly and showed up unprepared, and Coach was really hardworking and just very prepared, and they just fought almost every single practice.
Can you tell us about some of their fights?
Well, most of the time it was just over like minor things, like kind of the general stuff. But the first big incident that we were just like, wow, what's going on, was when Avery actually got demoted to B team because she showed up so late. Like, what was she doing? Getting Starbucks?
Were there any other fights between Coach Brackman and Miss Becker that you can recall?
Yeah, actually, after the regional tournament, they got in a huge fight. Avery actually, what we'll call it, coach was just debriefing us, telling us how we could be better going into state because it's extremely important. And Avery just started like flipping out. Coach was just telling her that she was unprepared and that if she did that in real life, it would be considered malpractice. And she stormed out of practice.
What did she do when she stormed out?
She took a marker and wrote Worst Attorney Award on Coach's car.
What was Coach Brackman's response?
He kicked her off the team, of course. Like, it's illegal to vandalize property. Of course she was kicked off the team.
And did Miss Becker reach out to you after that?
Yeah, me and Avery are really good friends, like almost best friends. So, of course, she asked for my help. She was practically begging for it to get back on the team. Like, that girl was desperate.
Your Honor, the court requests Mr. Powell to screen share the previously marked Exhibit 14. Ms. Fuentes, did any text stand out to you in particular?
Looking at this, if you look at the first page, it starts with well. That one, yeah. Avery makes a direct threat at Coach saying, well, if he's upset about his car, then he's going to be really upset when he sees what I do to his house.
Are there any other texts that Miss Becker sent that give a plan?
Yeah, it's one of the last ones. If you go to the second page.
I think you're out of time, Ms. Sayers.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Benedict, did you have any cross-examination?
Yes, I do, Your Honor.
Go ahead.
Ms. Fuentes, did you think that Mr. Brackman was a role model of yours?
Yeah, he was an amazing coach. He was absolutely great. I just, it's just.
Then would I be correct in saying that you believe to hold yourself to a high standard and you strive to be a good lawyer?
Of course I did. I worked really hard. When I got my assignments, I would start preparing that day my directs and crosses.
That is very admirable, Ms. Fuentes. Now, in line 7 of your testimony, you stated that you believe yourself and Avery Becker to be equally skilled. Am I correct?
We were.
So did you encounter Avery Becker and Taylor Perkins at the Fry Shack on March 5th?
Yeah, Avery was there. We talked about some stuff, and she actually agreed that I should have won the Best Attorney Award at Regionals.
May I ask what you talked about?
Well, we talked about that, and we also played Among Us on her phone. Oh my god, that game is so much fun.
So is it true that Avery gave you her phone to play a game on?
Yeah, she watched me the entire time.
And is it also true that Becker's phone has gone missing?
I guess so. I just found that out now. I wasn't aware of that, but thank you for telling me.
Now, is it true that you only sent Detective Markowitz screenshots of your text messages between you and Becker?
Yeah, funny story. I went to an interview and I left my phone plugged into the wall, but he said screenshots were great, so I sent that to him.
So the detective did say that screenshots would suffice, and he did not attempt to download any contents of your phone?
I can't really speak to his investigation, but yeah, he said screenshots are great.
And am I correct in saying that you do not have that phone currently?
Well, its battery was just not it, to be honest. So I actually got a new one. It's really cool.
What happened to your old one, may I ask?
Well, it's just battery wasn't working. I had to keep it plugged in all the time for it just to be on. It couldn't keep a charge. So I just traded it in. So I guess it's probably at some warehouse in the middle of nowhere.
Ms. Fuentes, may I ask if you know Blair Rowlands?
Not too well. Like I say hi, but in the hall, but I don't think I've ever had a class with him.
Then, do you have any idea why Taylor and Avery said in their witness statements that you and Blair were good friends?
I honestly don't know. Maybe it's because we said hi, but literally
Objection, Your Honor, hearsay?
Response, Mr. Benedict?
Your Honor, these statements were made in the witness. These statements were made in the witness's witness statements.
Response, Your Honor?
Ms. Sayers?
Your Honor, the other witnesses' witness statements are not, Ms. Fuentes can't testify to them, and that is an out-of-court statement being offered for the truth of the matter asserted.
Sustained. Move on, Mr. Benedict.
Am I correct in saying that Mr. Brackman sent Blair Rollins' father to prison for failure to get him acquitted?
That is at all what happened. You know, Coach was really caring, and he actually represented Blair's dad and put up a really good fight. I'm sorry that his dad actually ended up going to prison, but I don't think Coach would ever have any ill will towards them.
Transitioning to a different topic, am I correct in saying that you received these messages from Avery Becker prior to Brackman's murder?
Yeah, they did. That's when Avery made the threat, and you know, I just thought it was Avery being Avery, but kind of sus.
So upon receiving these messages from Avery, you did not think to alert Brackman of her plot?
No, I just thought it was Avery being Avery, but like I told you, after I got the call from Detective Markowitz and everything happened, I had to give it to him.
So until giving the text messages or the screenshots of the text messages to Detective Markowitz, you did not think to alert anybody else?
Well, Detective Markowitz is the police. He's the authorities. I didn't really think I needed to alert anyone else. They're the proper authorities.
Did you think that this threat was serious enough to be reported?
Originally, I didn't. Like I said, it kind of seemed like just Avery. But you know, after Coach's death, it seemed extremely important, and that's when I had to give him to the proper authorities.
Ms. Fuentes, would I be correct in saying that by you not reporting the messages, Avery would have gotten in legal trouble for trashing Brackman's house?
Like I guess so.
One final question, Ms. Fuentes. Are you jealous of the accomplishments of Avery Becker?
No, you know, I think Avery she's really good at making things up on the fly, and if she worked harder, it could be magical, but she doesn't, and I work really hard, and the only person I can focus on is myself.
Thank you, Ms. Fuentes. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fuentes. You are excused. Does the prosecution wish to call any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor. The people rest their case in chief.
Thank you. Does the defense wish to call any witnesses in its case?
Yes, Your Honor. We'd like to call Blake Fenno in.
Whenever you're ready, counsel.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Blake Van Owen, Owen.
And what do you do for a living, Miss Van Owen?
I am a private investigator and a professor at CU, teaching police policies and social justice. I got my master's degree at Ashford University through an online program that they provide, which made me want to become a professor. By the way, I would prefer to be addressed as Professor Van Owen rather than Miss Van Owen. I mean, who wouldn't, after all the work I've done to get the title?
Right. Professor Van Owen, can you tell me about the situation with the Aurora Police Department?
Yes. After beginning at the Aurora Police Department, I had injured a young woman during an arrest. Then I left the force and was cleared of wrongdoing, although I still felt guilty and was never able to clear myself, which made me learn that the system was not as great as it could be. So I started working at other jobs and then eventually got to studying and teaching about criminal justice.
Where have you been accepted as a defense expert?
I have been accepted as a defense expert in the U.S. District Court for the districts of Colorado, Kansas, Arizona, and the state courts of Colorado, Wyoming, Nebraska, and New Mexico. I have been accepted by various courts as an expert in crime scene reconstruction 8 times, in cell tower analysis 5 times, and in general police investigation tactics 12 times. And I have consulted on more than 100 cases.
What do you testify to being an expert witness in?
Cell tower analysis, crime scene reconstruction, general police investigation practice, police practices, false arrest, and forensic evidence techniques.
Your Honor, we move to enter Blake Van Owen as an expert in cell tower analysis, crime scene reconstruction, general police investigation practice, police practices, and forensic evidence techniques pursuant to Rule 702.
Any objection from the defense?
Your Honor, general police practices is somewhat broad and overly vague. If Ms. Hay could clarify what that means, I would have no objection.
Ms. Hay, go ahead and clarify a little bit.
We simply meant just all of the skills she had learned.
Ask Ms. McClure, please. I mean, Ms. Van Owen.
Sorry.
Please.
Ms. McClure, Ms. Van Owen. Ms. Van Owen, could you please go over what types of police practices you?
Yeah, so that typically means like what practices that the police usually works on and how they go about the investigation. So just reviewing over like how they went through the investigation is what I mostly look at.
Mr. Powell, any objection?
With that clarification, Your Honor, I have no objection to the tendering of Professor Van Owen.
She shall be so qualified.
All right, may we proceed?
Certainly.
All right, Professor Van Owen, what did you get out of the cell tower information?
The cell tower information can sometimes be very helpful, but most of the time it is not very accurate. A cell phone can connect to a cell tower up to 7 miles away. This shows that a cell phone doesn't have to be close to any specific cell tower to connect to it, and the phone could be in an entirely different place.
Can we be sure that Becker or Becker's phone was at Brackman's house?
No, we can't tell that their phone was there. Even if we could, we'd have no way of being sure that Avery was with her phone.
So does the cell tower information confirm that Becker was at the house?
No, it can't confirm this.
How authentic do you feel the text messages are?
Not very authentic. They could have been easily doctored, although we consider them as evidence. We know that the text messages can be easily manipulated. Markowitz also downloaded information from multiple other phones in this case, and yet decided not to download information off of this one, which was not a very intelligent move, and the evidence he was trying to get in this case was rushed, and rather than undertaking a thorough investigation, they did that.
Were you allowed to see the evidence?
No, but I saw the digital files of the evidence. Well, most of the digital evidence.
Most?
The prosecution lost some of the files and said they became corrupted somehow. Luckily for them, the CSR team got a look at them before that, but they got corrupted before I saw them. Seems a little too lucky.
How do you think the police did in collecting evidence and creating theories for what might have happened?
The people assigned to this case did not take any other options into consideration of what had happened when looking at the evidence. As I said, they lost photo evidence and did not collect cell tower information from Taylor's phone, which is neglecting information to prove a point. Rushing an investigation can cause a lot of problems in the long run and leads to something called confirmation bias. They also jumped to conclusions in this case because by not looking at any other person other than Avery Becker, they missed the fact that Blair had more of a motive, and he was barely investigated at all. It is not okay to let these things slide, even if they're little.
Could you tell us a little bit more about Blair Rollins?
Blair Rollins is a child of Jonathan Rollins, a former client of Brackman's. Brackman was unable to clear Jonathan of the murder charge, and he was sentenced to life in prison. From looking at the CHS yearbook, we can see that Blair Rollins has the same approximate build as Avery Becker. Also, Blair Rollins essentially disappeared after graduation. I have not been able to locate Blair despite extensive research, and I feel certain that Blair Rollins is no longer in Colorado. Despite that, the police never investigated Rollins, nor made any attempts to locate Blair. I also learned that Blair Rollins and Alex Fuentes were friends.
All right, Professor Van Owen and counsel, do you have a copy of what has previously been marked as Exhibit 22?
Yes.
Your Honor, permission for my co-counsel to screen share Exhibit 22?
Certainly.
All right, thank you. Professor Van Owen, I direct your attention to that exhibit. Would you identify it, please?
Yes. It is audio of Jonathan Rollins' court proceeding.
How do you know this?
It was marked as such.
Is it a fair and accurate representation?
Yes.
Your Honor, we move to enter the recording in Exhibit 22 into evidence.
Any objection, Mr. Powell?
No objection to 22, Your Honor.
Exhibit 22 shall be admitted. Are you moving to admit the exhibit or to the audio recording?
The audio recording.
Any objection to the actual audio recording, Mr. Powell?
No objection to that, Your Honor.
All right, that shall be admitted.
My apologies. I just realized I was muted and you could not hear it. I'll play the recording again.
I'll get you back, Brackman, if it's the last thing I do.
Thank you. Professor Van Owen, what can you tell us about this recording?
This is a recording of Blair's father when he was convicted because of Brackman. After hearing what's said, I think it is safe to say that Blair would have been upset. Wanting to get revenge for your father being sent to prison is a more likely motive for murder.
Between Avery Becker and Blair Rollins, which of them seems to be the more likely suspect?
Blair Rollins, no doubt.
Could you tell us what you think about the ring footage?
Well, there aren't any timestamps on them, and there's no identifying evidence that proves it was Avery. Like I said, Blair Rollins was roughly the same size and build of Avery, and it could have been him.
All right. How do we know these were on the day of the murder?
Well, we really don't. The prosecution failed to include timestamps. As we know, they seem very trustworthy with evidence. This could have been different. This could have been from a different day. Just to prove a point, to me it looks like a Halloween costume. It could have been from Halloween. Maybe it was a prank from a while ago. We really have no way of knowing for sure without the timestamps.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Mr. Benedict, please take down the screen. Thank you. Any cross-examination, Mr. Powell?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Good morning, Ms. Van Owen. My name is Chalmers Powell.
Good morning.
Let's talk about the screenshots of the text messages. You believe that they could have been Doctor.
Yes, I do.
But Nothing on the screenshots indicates that they were doctored.
That is correct, but it can happen very easily.
But nothing on them indicates that they were doctored.
No.
Let's talk about your investigation. You investigated alternative suspects for and explanations for Mackenzie Brackman's murder.
Correct.
The only other person you investigated for the Mackenzie Brackman's murder was Blair Rollins.
Yes, I looked into that.
You believe Blair Rollins could have had a motive.
Yes, because his father was sent to life in prison.
That's right. At the sentencing, Jonathan Rollins yelled something at Mr. Brackman. Is that a yes? For the record, Miss Van Owen, I'd like to a verbal yes, please.
Yes, sorry.
And Miss Van Owen, he yelled, "Brackman is going to die."
I believe so.
Well, Miss Van Owen, on direct examination, you heard Exhibit 22, didn't you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I misheard the question. He specifically talked about getting revenge.
Specifically, you say that Jonathan Rollins said Brackman is going to die.
No, I'm sorry. I misspoke.
Sorry. To be clear, that is your testimony today that you say Jonathan Rollins said Brackman is going to die?
No, he talked about getting revenge, but not those specific words.
You prepared a statement for today's case. Is that a yes?
That Brackman is going to die? No.
Exactly. Miss Van Owen, you prepared a witness statement for today's case.
Oh, yes.
You signed that statement,
Yes.
affirming that it was complete.
Mm-hmm.
For the record, please answer with yes or no, not a gruddled response.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yes.
You signed that statement affirming that it was accurate.
Yes.
And by signing that statement, you swore that it was truthful.
Yes.
And in that statement, you say that Jonathan Rollins said Brackman is going to die.
That is correct. When writing down the statement,
Miss Van Owen, I didn't ask you to explain. I only asked if you did, and it sounds like your answer is yes. Is that a yes?
Yes.
So you're changing your testimony today.
No, although I did make a mistake in my testimony, I am not able to do so.
Miss Van Owen, is it your testimony today that is it still your testimony today that Jonathan Rollins did not said Brackman is going to die?
Well, I cannot change what is in my witness statement, so it would still be that is correct.
Well, Miss Van Owen, by signing that statement, you affirmed that you and understood that you had the opportunity and the legal obligation to update that statement.
Yes.
Right.
I did not change it, and although I could have, I did not.
Right. Let's talk about the knife. You believe the knife was brought into the home by the intruder?
Yes.
And Miss Van Owen, if the knife was brought into the home by the intruder, that indicates premeditation.
Yes. Correct.
And if that were true, that would mean that Avery Becker couldn't have done it.
Yes, I believe that is correct.
Well, Miss Van Owen, you saw the ring video.
I did. And it could have been a concealed weapon.
You saw the intruder,
Yes.
but you didn't see the intruder carrying or have a knife, did you?
No, but it could have been a concealed weapon.
That sounded like a no, right?
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Van Owen. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Hay, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Do you have any other witnesses you wish to call at this time?
Yes, we would like to call Avery Becker.
Ms. Becker? Certainly.
Thank you. Ms. Becker, please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
My name is Avery Becker, Becker.
And why are you here?
I am here because I've been falsely accused of murdering Coach Brackman.
What was your relationship with Mackenzie Brackman?
Mackenzie Brackman was my mock trial coach. I'd known him for years. Sometimes we disagreed about things because we had different preparation methods, but I didn't hate him. He wasn't too bad of a coach. And I think we can all say he's been greatly missed.
How long were you on the mock trial team?
All 4 years of high school.
Did you enjoy mock trial?
Yeah, it was my favorite thing in high school.
What happened the night after regionals?
The night after regionals, Coach Brackman got upset about my different preparation styles, and I was angry. He didn't appreciate my talent. And so, by accident, I wrote on his car. I thought it was a dry erase marker, but I realized it was a Sharpie, and I instantly regretted it.
Did you talk to Brackman after that incident?
I tried to. I tried to apologize, and I went into his office to apologize, but he wouldn't see me. So I wanted to say that I would get a summer job to repaint his car, but he wouldn't listen. I also sent an apology text.
Was this the first time you would have reacted like this?
Yes.
How did you feel about the whole situation?
I felt horrible. I didn't think it was a big deal when I thought it was a dry erase marker, but when it was permanent, I felt horrible.
What is your relationship with Taylor Perkins?
Taylor Perkins is my best friend.
And your relationship with Alex Fuentes?
We don't get along, but Alex keeps saying that we're best friends.
Do you know Blair Rollins?
Not well. I know his father is in jail and some other things, but other than that, no.
All right. Do you know anything about Blair and Alex's relationship?
From what I've seen, they look like friends.
Do you have any idea what the alleged text messages said?
No idea. Didn't send them.
Where were you on March 6th?
On March 6th, Taylor and I were looking for my phone. She kept calling it to see if we could hear it or not. We were just retracing our steps at the mall.
Why were you looking for it?
I misplaced it, and so me and Taylor went to go look for it.
Where did you go to look for it?
We went to go to retrace our steps at the mall. We also went to the Fry Shack that day.
Do you know where Brackman's house is?
No, I don't.
And how did you feel when you found out he had been killed?
I felt horrible. I mean, I'd known him for years.
All right. No further questions, Your Honor.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Proctor, did you have any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Becker.
Good morning.
My name is Madeline Proctor. Let's start with the mock trial team. You thought that you were the best attorney on the entire team.
I am the best attorney on the entire team.
Right, but Coach Brackman didn't agree with that.
Coach Brackman was looking for me to be more prepared, but I had a natural gift. I didn't need to prepare.
Is it your testimony here today that Coach Brackman thought you were the best attorney in the entire team?
He didn't, but I wasn't a suck-up, so of course he didn't.
Let's talk about Coach Brackman for a minute. You thought you were a better attorney than him, too.
I wouldn't say that. But
Your testimony here today that you would not say you were a better attorney than Coach Brackman.
I was a good attorney. That's all I can say.
Is it your testimony here today that you did not think you were a better attorney than Coach Brackman?
I had talent at a young age.
Ms. Becker, I understand that you'd like to explain, but that's not my question. My question is that you thought you were a better attorney than Coach Brackman, and it sounds like your answer is yes.
Yeah,
But you thought he was the one with the ego, didn't you?
I did.
And you two would always get into arguments at practice?
We did.
After one of those arguments, you were even demoted to the B team.
That's correct.
And you call the B team full of losers.
That is correct.
So you tried everything, every possible thing to get back onto A team.
I did.
But none of it worked, right?
No, it didn't.
Until your best friend in the entire world, Taylor Perkins, quit the team for you.
She's a very loyal best friend.
Exactly. She's very loyal. And that's the same person who you claim to be with on March 6th, right?
That's correct.
She's the only person you claim to be with?
That is correct.
And you and Miss Perkins are the only two people testifying to this jury that you were together on March 6th, aren't you?
That's correct.
So before regionals, Coach Brackman had to take you back on the team.
Yes.
He had no other choice.
We were the best attorneys.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
And then at regionals, you actually won some awards. Is that a yes?
That's a yes.
But Coach Brackman said you didn't deserve those awards.
Yeah, he did say that.
That made you mad, didn't it?
I was frustrated that he would humiliate me like that, but
right, I understand that you were frustrated, but you weren't just frustrated, you were mad.
I was upset.
Is it your testimony here today that you were not mad?
I was hurt. And I was frustrated.
And then you went outside.
That is correct.
And you saw his white Porsche.
That is correct.
The same Porsche you knew Coach Brackman loved.
Yeah.
The same Porsche that you call a joke even after his death.
Yeah.
So you go out and you write worst attorney award on his white Porsche.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness's character and reputation is not in question.
Ms. Proctor, response?
I would argue that the witness's reputation for, actually, Your Honor, I believe this is an objection to improper character evidence. Is that correct?
Correct.
And this is not being used to show improper character evidence because it is not being used to show that Ms. Becker acted in accordance with the behavior, the vandalism that she did when vandalizing the car on March 6th. It is simply being used to show the motive as she got kicked off the team by Coach Brackman afterwards. And this gave her the motive to go to his house and vandalize it.
Overruled. She may answer.
So you went outside and wrote worst attorney award on that same Porsche.
That's correct.
And then Coach Brackman kicks you off the team for good.
Yeah.
Now you were even madder.
I was really hurt.
Miss Becker, I understand that you were hurt, but is it your testimony here today that you were not even madder after you got kicked off the team?
I was mad.
Even madder, right, than you were before?
Yeah.
And when you got home, you didn't tell your mother what really happened that night.
I wanted to make it right with Mr. Brackman before I told her.
You wanted to make it right with Mr. Brackman, but you blamed it on Mr. Brackman, right?
He didn't appreciate my natural talent. He didn't appreciate how much.
I understand that you'd like to explain, but I asked you that you blamed it on Coach Brackman, and it sounds like your answer is yes.
Yes.
All right. And then you told your mother, I will get back at Coach Brackman if it's the last thing I do. Isn't that right?
That's correct.
The more you thought about it, the more you knew what you had to do, right?
No.
Is it your testimony here today that the more you thought about it, the more you did not know what you had to do?
That's correct. I was frustrated. I didn't know what else I could do to get back on the team.
Just to clarify, that night when you were talking to your mother, the more you thought about it, the more you knew exactly what you had to do.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Becker. Your Honor, I have no further questions at this time.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Hay, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you, Ms. Hay. Ma'am, you can step down. Does the defense wish to call any further witnesses?
Yes, Your Honor. The defense calls Taylor Perkins to the stand.
All right. Ms. Perkins, whenever
Yes.
you're ready, counsel.
Yes. Good morning, Miss Perkins. Could you please state your name and spell your last for the record?
Taylor Perkins, Perkins.
Do you know why you're here today?
Yes, my friend Avery is accused of murdering our coach, Coach Brackman.
You're a coach of what?
Mock trial.
And what was your relationship with Mackenzie Brackman?
When I attended Colorado High School, he was my mock trial coach.
Why did you initially join mock trial?
Initially, to just spend more time with Avery.
So why did you drop the team?
Well, I thought it would help Avery get back on the team. We were some of the best attorneys, and I knew that Brackman wouldn't want to lose his best attorneys.
What was Avery's relationship with Brackman like?
They did not get along very well, and Brackman got mad at her a lot.
So what happened after mock trial regionals?
Well, Avery got 2 awards, and Brackman got mad since she hadn't really prepared and kicked Avery off the team. And then Avery vandalized Brackman's car with a Sharpie, although she thought it was a dry erase marker.
And how did Avery appear to feel about this?
She appeared to be very upset.
And what happened the next day after Avery vandalized the car?
Well, Avery tried to apologize, but Brackman just ignored her.
And how did Avery appear to feel about being ignored?
Very remorseful.
What is your relationship to Avery Becker?
We're really close friends.
Would you consider her to be a good lawyer?
I would.
Would you consider Mr. Brackman to be a good coach?
Well, he wasn't bad. It was very my way or the highway with him, but he definitely wasn't the worst coach.
Can you confirm that Avery Becker was with you all day on March 6th?
Yes, I can.
And what were you doing on March 6th?
We were looking for her phone.
Where were you looking?
The mall, more specifically the Fry Shack.
Do you know Alex Cifuentes?
Yes, we were on the mock trial team together.
Do you know Blair Rowlands?
Not that well.
So what did you think of Alex Cifuentes?
I didn't really like them. They're stuck up with a superiority complex.
What did you think of Blair Rowlands?
Again, we really weren't that close.
What is Alex and Blair's relationship like?
I was under the impression that they were good friends.
Miss Perkins, did Avery Becker text Alex Cifuentes to ask them to ask Brackman to reinstate Avery on A team?
Maybe.
Speculation.
Response, Mr. Benedict?
Your Honor, I am asking the witness to state a fact.
Overruled. You can answer.
Miss Perkins, did Avery text Alex to ask them to ask Brackman to reinstate Avery on the A team?
Maybe. I don't really remember. Avery never told me.
How did Alex Cifuentes behave around your coach?
Again, they were a suck up, and Brackman just preferred them to Avery.
What happened at the Fry Shack on March 5th?
Well, we went to grab something to eat, and Alex showed up being nice. Then Avery got mad and went to the bathroom, and she left her phone at the table. And I don't remember Avery getting her phone back.
Was Alex's statement an accurate representation of this?
Not at all. Alex says that they're friends with Avery, but Avery would never ask Alex to let her back on the team. They really just weren't close friends. So Avery wouldn't give Alex her phone, even just to play a game.
In line 65 of your statement, you said that Avery's phone is, quote, like her third kidney, unquote. So Why would she have left it?
She was just really upset, and I think she just didn't realize.
So how did Avery realize she had lost her phone?
She didn't answer any of my texts the next morning.
One final question. Following the car incident, did Avery Becker show any intent to further harm Mr. Brackman?
No, not at all.
I have no further questions. Thank you, Ms. Perkins.
Thank you, counsel. Ms. Sayers, any cross-examination?
Yes, Your Honor. Good morning, Ms. Perkins. My name is Feliciana Sayers. Let's start with your relationship with Coach Brackman. You thought Coach Brackman was a mediocre coach.
Yes.
You thought he made bad choices for the team.
Mm-hmm.
To your knowledge, he thought Miss Becker put little effort into mock trial.
Yes.
Miss Becker would often show up late and unprepared to practice.
Yeah, that was just her way of doing things.
And from what you saw, Coach Brackman did not like Miss Becker.
No.
Let's talk about what happened a month before the regional tournament. Miss Becker came to practice most unprepared you had ever seen.
Yes.
She was obviously making things up on the fly.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
Miss Becker was getting a bit off track from the prepared closing arguments.
Yes.
Coach Brackman got so heated about this, he demoted her to the B team.
Yes.
And you thought that Miss Becker deserved to be on the A team.
Yes, she's a good lawyer.
So you decided to quit the team in support of your best friend.
Yes.
Yet you did not quit the team the day after Miss Becker was demoted.
Yes, that's correct.
You did not quit the team the week after Miss Becker was demoted.
Yes.
You waited 3 whole weeks after Miss Becker was demoted to quit the mock trial team, the week before the regional tournament.
Yes.
Leaving Coach Brackman no choice but to put Miss Becker back on the A team.
Yes.
Let's talk about what happened after regionals. Coach Brackman got all over Miss Becker.
Yes.
Giving her a hard time about everything.
Yes.
He even said that Miss Becker did not deserve the awards she won.
Yes.
And so when Miss Becker left, she Sharpied Worst Attorney Award on the hood of Coach Brackman's Porsche.
Yes, but again, she thought it was a dry erase marker.
Objection, Your Honor. The witness has no personal knowledge of this event as she was not here when it was happening.
Response, Your Honor? Ms. Perkins already testified she is the best friend of the defendant. They tell each other everything.
Overruled her answer, may stand.
So, after this incident, Coach Brackman kicked her off the team for good.
Well, he demoted her to B team.
Ms. Perkins, is it your testimony that after Ms. Becker Sharpied Coach Brackman's car, she was then demoted to the B team?
Yes.
Ms. Perkins, you made a statement for today?
Mm-hmm.
And you signed that statement?
Yes.
And by signing that statement, you promised that it was accurate?
Yes.
And you promised that it would be truthful?
Mm-hmm.
And you promised that it was complete?
Yes.
And in that statement, you say that Coach Brackman kicked Miss Becker off the team for good.
All right.
Let's talk about what happened on March 5th. Miss Becker attempted to show up at mock trial practice.
Yes.
She was then told to leave.
Yes.
So she went to your house.
Uh-huh.
Is that a yes?
Yes, it is.
And the two of you played games on your phones.
Yes.
Later that evening, the two of you went to get some food at the Fry Shack.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And it was there you saw, sorry. And after that, the two of you went to the mall.
Yes.
The next morning, Miss Becker picked you up for school.
Yes.
And it wasn't until you pointed it out that Miss Becker realized her phone was missing.
Yes.
A phone you describe as her third kidney.
Well, yes, she was kind of in shock from being kicked off the team.
Ms. Perkins, this was a phone that you described as never out of reach.
Objection, Your Honor, these questions have been asked and answered in her direct.
Ms. Sayers?
Your Honor, I am asking my own questions. My questions don't have to follow what was asked in direct.
Overruled. She may answer.
Ms. Perkins, this is a phone you described as never out of Ms. Becker's reach.
Yes.
So the two of you decided to spend the day looking for her phone.
Yes, that is correct.
And according to your story, you spent the entire day at the mall.
Yes.
And according to your story, you never found Miss Becker's phone.
Yes.
Now, earlier on direct examination, you said that Miss Becker did not text Alex Ufuentes to get back on the team.
I really don't know.
You made a statement for today's case?
Pardon?
You made a statement for today's case.
A statement on what?
You made a statement, a witness statement for today's case.
Yes, I did.
And you signed that statement.
Yes, I did.
And you promised that it would be accurate.
Yes.
Complete.
Yes.
And truthful.
Mm-hmm.
And in that statement, you say that Miss Becker texted everyone on the team, including Alex Ufuentes.
Yes.
Now, Ms. Perkins, you and Miss Becker are the only two people testifying today that the two of you spent the entire day together.
Yes.
Thank you. Your Honor, I have no further questions.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Benedict, do you have any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Does the defense have any further witnesses they wish to call at this time?
We do not, Your Honor.
Does the defense rest?
The defense rests.
Does the prosecution rest and close at this time?
Yes, Your Honor, the prosecution has a closing argument.
All right. Whenever you're ready to proceed.
Your Honor, counsel, members of the jury. Towers, texts, and tantrums. On Friday, March 6, 2020, around 1 p.m., Mackenzie Brackman got an alert on his phone. Motion at your front door. Seconds later, he got another. Motion at your side gate. He rushed to the kitchen to grab a defensive weapon, but before he could get to the back door, the intruder had entered his home. He struggled with the intruder. He fought for his life, but he was stabbed in the back. Little did he know, his intruder was Avery Becker. Members of the jury, my name is Chalmers Powell. Along with Madeline Proctor and Feliciana Sayers, we represent the people of the state of Colorado. In today's case, we carry the burden of proof. That means we had to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant committed second-degree burglary and first-degree murder. As the judge will instruct you, a reasonable doubt isn't a vague, speculative, imaginary doubt, but a doubt that would cause you, a reasonable person, to hesitate to act in matters of importance to yourself. We had to prove to you that the defendant entered Mr. Brackman's home with the intent to commit criminal mischief. That is second-degree burglary. We also had to prove to you that the defendant that Mr. Brackman died while the defendant committed that crime. That is first-degree murder. We have met our burden. How do we know? Avery Becker said she intended to vandalize the home, and Mackenzie Brackman died. Simple as that. Technically, it doesn't matter if the defendant didn't go to the home with the intent to kill. It could have just been a simple prank to vandalize his house, but she ended up killing him. Technically, it doesn't even matter if the defendant stabbed the victim. All that matters is that Miss Becker went to Mr. Brackman's home with the intent to vandalize, and Mr. Brackman died. At the beginning of this trial, my co-counsel, Madeline Proctor, asked you to focus on three things: towers, texts, and tantrums. Towers. The towers prove that the defendant was at Mr. Brackman's home. Her phone pinged not once, not twice, but 3 times right there. She claims she lost her phone, but she didn't realize it was missing until the next day. That phone was her third kidney. Please. Texts. The texts prove that the defendant intended to commit criminal mischief. I'm going to wait until he's at work, break in, and trash it. She claims that Alex Fuentes and Blair Rollins conspired against her and faked these texts. There's no reason for that to happen. That's the imaginary doubt. That's the speculative, vague doubt. They just want you to imagine it. Towers. Tantrums. The tantrums from Avery Becker led to Mr. Brackman's death. First, she was upset and frustrated when she was criticized about her work, so she went out and vandalized the car. If she was just frustrated and vandalized the car, then what would she do if she was mad? Very mad. Her reaction when she got kicked off the team: I'm going to trash the house. I'm going to get him back if it's the last thing I do. In a moment, Mr. Benedict will stand right here and try and sweep away all of this evidence. Don't let him. The only bias in this case comes from Taylor Perkins and Avery Becker. Taylor Perkins is the very loyal best friend, and she knew what she had to do for Avery Becker. And Avery Becker is on trial for murder. She has every reason not to tell the truth. Towers, texts, and tantrums lead to the truth. Avery Becker went to the home to vandalize, stabbed Mr. Brackman, and killed him. She is guilty as charged. Thank you.
Thank you, counsel. Mr. Benedict, do you wish to provide a closing argument at this time?
I do, Your Honor.
Whenever you're ready, counsel.
Good morning, Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury and opposing counsel. My name is Percy Benedict, and once again, I am a defense lawyer in this case, the people of Colorado versus Avery Becker. In the case presented by the prosecution, there is insufficient evidence to convict Avery Becker of first-degree felony murder and second-degree burglary. The prosecution has not proved beyond reasonable doubt that Becker is guilty of her crimes. Therefore, we ask for a verdict of not guilty. Today, we have learned about confirmation bias. Law enforcement rushed to incriminate Becker based on the events after regionals. Avery Becker's vandalism of Mackenzie Brackman's car in a fit of frustration. Her attempts to apologize were only met with silence from Brackman, furthering her remorse. Would somebody who felt so horrible just for vandalizing a car go so far as to trash a house or murder the man they wanted so desperately to apologize to? The prosecution and their police witnesses say that we are guilty of confirmation bias, yet they are not exempt from it themselves. As has been stated in previous testimonies, the police rushed to find Brackman's killer and settled on Avery based on loose evidence. Her vandalism of his car was an act of anger, not an indication that she was planning to harm him any further. One would have to make a considerable leap in judgment to go from criminal mischief to murder. Law enforcement's rush to convict Becker led to a sloppily done investigation, including accepting screenshots of text messages rather than the actual phone, only choosing a narrow time frame of the cell tower records, and glossing over pertinent evidence and suspects in favor of rushing to find Avery guilty of the murder. Their certainty of Avery's guilt, based on her past rash actions, have tainted their view of the case and of another potential killer, Blair Rowlands. As has been mentioned throughout this trial, the investigation of this case was rushed, as detectives did not pursue Blair Rowlands. Rowlands has a motive, was missing from school on March 6th, and has gone missing in wake of the murder. Avery Becker was a rash and impulsive girl who only wished to apologize to the victim after vandalizing his car. Her remorse shows no intent to harm or even burgle Mr. Brackman. Law enforcement's bias against Avery neglects to state just how much she wished to apologize to Brackman in the wake of one mistake. Mock trial meant everything to Avery. Do you think she would risk imprisonment by harming her coach, the coach of the team that she loved? Would she risk the team and friends and activity that meant the world to her? Her relationship to Mackenzie Brackman is irrelevant. It is Avery's love of mock trial that matters. If she lost Mackenzie Brackman, she lost mock trial, and she had no passion. Ladies and gentlemen, Blair Rowlands is a high school student whose father was put in prison due to Mackenzie Brackman's failure to get him acquitted. Jonathan Rollins is currently serving life in prison, and Blair may never get to see his father again. The last thing said by Jonathan before he was sent to prison was that he will get his revenge, and now Blair has seen the perfect opportunity to enact his revenge for him. Blair was able to get to Brackman's house, kill him, and escape right after. To top it all off, they had a potential accomplice and the perfect person to pin the murder on. This is the situation that Blair Rowlands has been put into. Does this story not seem more likely than Avery Becker going to burgle her coach simply because she was kicked off of the mock trial team? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the defendant does not have to prove that she is innocent, but it is the prosecution's job to prove her guilty. They have not met the burden of proof beyond any reasonable doubt that Avery Becker is guilty. This case is fraught with doubt. We ask that the only verdict you deliver is the fair verdict of not guilty. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Benedict. Mr. Powell?
Your Honor, I request a brief time check.
I think you had 20.
20 seconds. Members of the jury, the defense wants you to believe that a 13-year veteran of the police force and a 16-year career veteran of crime scene reconstruction would risk their career just to frame Avery Becker. That's the speculative doubt. The criminal mischief to murder, it doesn't matter. Miss Becker. Oh.
Thank you, Mr. Powell. All right. Thank you all very much. We're going to give the timekeepers a chance to score their sheets. And while they do that, I'm not going to talk specifics until they're done, but I'm going to talk a little general. Just so you know who I am, I'm a county court judge here in Arapahoe County. I have been since 2016. Prior to that, I was a prosecutor for approximately 25 years. I've tried probably 300 felony jury trials. And I have to say, every year I've done this, and I've done this for quite a few years, probably about 6 or 7. Every year I do this, I'm impressed because you folks, your abilities, I'm actually disappointed afterwards when I see a jury trial of attorneys practicing in front of me, because I think, why can't they be like these guys? Because of how well you guys do. And I don't know if any of you have parents that are attorneys or whatever, but I'm going to give you a little information that you probably, quite frankly, don't care about, but I'm going to give it anyway. And you can quiz your parents on it if they're attorneys. In a trial, when you say you rest, what it means is that you're resting for now, right? Just like what rest means. You're going to get up and come and go at it later. And a lot of times in trials, there's the presentation of evidence, and then there's the rebuttals. So the prosecution will go, the defense will go, and then the prosecution can go again. So what will happen is prosecution says we rest, defense says we rest, and then the judge should go back to the prosecution and say, do you rest and close? And what that means is I'm closing my presentation of evidence. And then they go to the defense and say, do you rest and close? Yes, we rest and close. So it's different than rest, right? Every time I ask attorneys that, or most times when I ask attorneys that in court, they don't know. They look at me like oh, you want me to do something else, but it's not. So quiz your parents on that, because that's something not a lot of attorneys know anymore. But it's the one advantage of being old like me, is you know a few tricks of the trade. Have Echo, Ian, or Luke finished your scoring yet? All right, Echo, did you have any comments you wanted to make?
Yeah, so do we have all the scores in? I know I'm not supposed to give specific comments unless we've got them all in. Looking at Heather.
No, I haven't finished up quite yet, but
use your phone calculator.
All right,
Luke?
so what I'm gonna say is here's what I will tell you, so that I'm general and we're not too specific. You guys are way braver than I am. I don't think I could practice in this day and age with this virtual environment. I don't think I could do it. It's very different, the way you have to present a case, and you folks took to it like it was water. So, and you can swim, and it was a wonderful presentation of a case virtually. It's a very difficult environment to present a case in. And so I want to commend all of you for being willing, first of all, to try and do this in this environment and change the way you've done things from the past. I think there's maybe a few of you that are upperclassmen, a few of you that may not be, I don't know. But this is definitely a different year for everybody. So I want to thank you for that. Do we have them all yet?
Luke and Ian, are you guys done? Give me the thumbs up if you're done. Ian? Not yet? All right. They're all done.
All done. Okay, so I'm gonna give just general comments for prosecution team. I think you guys have a great grasp of the rules. I want to commend you on that. Knowing the rules is really kind of where it starts for the attorneys, and being able to, particularly when you were bringing in experts, and this is a somewhat expert heavy case pattern this year, but being able to know those rules and cite them like they were your phone number is a really wonderful thing. And so you folks had a really great grasp of the rules. You knew your impeachment dance. I could see when you were lining up your impeachment, you did a really great job with that. And so it looks like you've got some great folks in the gallery who are helping you learn those things and get that. And so good job there. Defense, you guys did a lot of preparation. Having only 2 attorneys, oh my goodness, that's a lot of work for both of you. So I want to commend you on all of the hard work you put in, because having only 2 attorneys is just a lot. It's enough with 3 people doing the whole work. So great job on your preparation, defense attorneys. Witnesses, on the prosecution side, you had a great grasp of the facts. You were clearly prepared. It was clear to me that you folks have been practicing this all along. And so great job of making sure you knew the facts. It wasn't one of those things where I didn't think anybody had prepared and knew what they were doing on that side. On the defense witnesses, you all did a great job with your emoting and your emotion. I could really sense the emotion from my defense witnesses. And so I appreciate everything you did there. I want to give you one technique for maybe the next round. Ms. Proctor kind of used this a little bit. In this virtual environment, it's hard because you are cutting people off. And so your ability as a cross-examiner to say, cut somebody off and get the yes or no that you want is a lot harder. And so one of the things you might try as maybe a soft technique, or at the beginning, kind of getting it so that you have given that witness I'm just going to use my time for the questions I need. And so one technique I might use is to say, I understand that you may have some additional information you want to provide. My time here is very limited today, and so I would like it if you could just answer my questions yes or no. The other attorney is going to be able to get up and ask you any follow-up on the questions I've asked you, but for now, can you just answer my questions yes or no? It gives it kind of a soft pedal so that you don't have to kind of constantly interrupt. There were some witnesses who were on cross-examination a little tough here. So I will say that may be just a technique you can try using in the future, given the virtual environment we're in. But that's all I've got to say. Anybody else? Who's next?
Luke, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Yeah, I thought the openings were great. I've got personal comments for everybody. If you'd like them, I always stick around at the end to see if you want them. But in general, I just thought you guys did a great job. You're super prepared. I couldn't do what you guys do yet, but I'll hold off. If you guys want personal comments, always wait till the end and I can give it to you guys then. But I know everyone, you've got another round, so I don't want to keep you captured here if you don't need to.
All right. Ian?
Yeah, I think everyone, like, just following up on Echo and Luke's comments, you guys all did a great job in at least playing the part of, you guys did a great job on the attorney side and then playing the parts of the witnesses. So that was really fun to see. This is always a fun opportunity for me, especially. I'm not in legal in any means, so sorry for my unprofessionalism on that side. But you guys did an amazing job and keep it up. I know it is tough with the Zoom and everything, but you guys made it seem like it was nothing, and just keep working hard, and I'm sure you guys will do great work and hopefully be A-class attorneys sometime soon. So
Thank you, Ian. Guys, this is the one frustrating thing I have about being on Zoom is I've made like 3 pages worth of notes and it's not timely to go through it. Yeah, Luke did it too. And I'm sorry I can't be more specific. What I did was just save one general comment for either side. For the Team M, when you impeach, it takes a lot of time and you burned a lot of your time impeaching and not getting to the substance. So the way you can impeach is by asking, isn't it true you said this in your statement? And then if they deny it, you can go into the, didn't you swear to tell the truth? And didn't you, only if they deny it. Otherwise, just kind of move on and get that statement out that you want to impeach them with up front. And the reason for that is you've got such a limited time. You don't want to burn all your time just kind of going through a litany that I think you guys did 4 or 5 times. And that ruins all your beautiful time that you're spending tearing apart your witness, right? So focus on that. And then for the defense, folks, you guys, especially the attorneys, knew your case inside and out. And that's impressive, okay? Now take that for the next one, set it aside. And sit down and go through the rules of evidence. Because if you put that plus the rules of evidence together, you're going to be unbeatable. You have such a great knowledge of the case. You've got to take that and, like I said, set it aside, focus on the rules of evidence so that you can have as good and as tight a knowledge of that as you do of the facts of the case. Because if you do that flow, you kept getting interrupted on your flow, that's not going to happen. And once you can do that on both sides, again, it's going to be hard to beat you guys, okay? You guys did a great job. Thank you very much. I hope you don't have too much homework that you're avoiding this weekend, and have a great rest of your weekend and enjoy.
Thank you, guys. I'm going to go ahead and stop the live stream at this point in time.
Thank you so much. Good job, Team X.
Thank you.
Good job.
Hey, Team M, if you're not up, coaches want us to stay for comments from jurors.
I will leave it running.
Thank you.
Okay, I can give you guys comments if you want.